Thank you, Eliza. Thank you, Steve and Liam. That was a fantastic porphyry party. Hopefully I can join. Excellent. So hopefully I won't have trouble with this slide changer. But look, today I was really going to focus on what has been over a decade in the making on the Chilean coastline with HotChilli. This is really a consolidation story and about a graduation of a company that went over to Chile to where a third of the world's copper is produced, to wave the Australian flag, do deals that no other people had done, secure ourselves a position on the coastline of Chile, right in the middle of infrastructure, make a fantastic discovery in the last cycle, and then be one of the few survivors of the downturn, because the big copper business is all about the cycle. It's all about timing and bringing these deposits on, as Liam alluded to. So to be sitting here at the beginning of a copper cycle, within a year of tripling the resource base, now having the largest copper development on the ASX outside of the control of a major, we're in a very, very strong position now. Steve's gone through some of the geology. I won't go through some of that, but suffice to say, I'll put a bit of a glossing on it and talk about the company's next steps. Really importantly, over the last 3 or 4 months, I guess HotChilli has achieved what looks like a complete remake of the company, and that transformation is really gathering pace. This is a presentation that's just been presented to me to about 46 institutions over the last 2 weeks in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is the precursor to an IPO into the TSXV and a secondary listing in the Canadian market, where all of these large-scale copper developers reside. So we'll just move into, I'll try to wrap up George's summary of the copper sector. It is now, really overtaken gold. It's one of the most valuable sectors in the metal space. A lot of people in Australia don't realise that this has actually occurred, and what we saw there with a reallocation of money in investment towards energy metals, this is really what's driving this. So not to labour on, but we have a very large resource base. 750 million tonnes, mostly open pittable as well, Liam, on the coastline of Chile, and very, very pleased to report on the political situation is that the centre-right is looking like it's in a very strong position to win the presidency, and therefore to deal with a super tax issue which has plagued Chile in the last 6 months and given the Australians a lot to be pleased about. But certainly following in the footsteps of the Australians who proposed the last super tax for the industry in the last cycle, I'm sure that we'll see that resolved very shortly, particularly with Cast sitting where he is in the election. So we have 2.9 million tonnes of copper, 2.7 million ounces of gold, and all of this is possible because we secured a private discovery next to our original Productora project on the coastline. What this is a very, very simple 1 + 1 = 3 equation, and it is leverage in its true definition in the industry. 10 years of work to build a blueprint for a large coastal deposit that we're now leveraging off and ensuring that this project will be one of the leaders going into production in the large-scale copper space in this cycle, beating out a lot of our peers in the large copper space that all reside in North America. So about 10 weeks ago now, we had a bit of validation in the industry and a significant investment by Glencore in the company. They're now sitting as our largest shareholder, and they supported us to take out a raising which ensured that we could buy this world-class discovery in Cortadera, 100%, no royalties. That's HotChilli's now. So what we're developing, it's a production hub. 2 projects that sit 14 kilometres away, central processing going to be employed, downhill conveyor that is going to be able to deliver us a tonne of dirt from our new porphyry discovery at about 20 cents to the mill. So not only is this one of the largest projects in the development pipeline outside of the control of majors, it's also the lowest altitude. We are the only major copper developer in the Americas that is not listed in North America. 2 weeks from now, that will change. We're also one of the very few projects that has no arsenic in our ore bodies, this is becoming a very rare feature in the future supply of copper concentrates to the market. So you can think of Costa Fuego, what we're building here, the connection of these two deposits, very similar to what Teck and Newmont are developing about 100 kilometres away, but they're doing that in the high Andes, mostly where these big, large-scale projects exist in the Andean belt, as Liam alluded to, at 4,000-metre altitude plus. Very expensive CapExes, very expensive operating costs. Connecting a deposit at 4,000 metres altitude to 2,300 metres altitude, as they're doing Nueva Union, is certainly where we're looking at a fraction of that cost to do it down on the coastline. We're moving dirt from 1,000 metres to 800 metres elevation, right on the Pan American Highway, right next to an existing port facility that's built, and right in the middle of the Central Huasco Valley infrastructure corridor. About as easy as it gets in the biggest country for copper production. So we sit at about $200 million, and I guess that should be a very good thing. 2 years ago, I was about 10 million market cap, taking on a $30 million acquisition that most people wondered how this was going to end, and most people suspected it was going to end badly. So times have changed. Copper price has gone to $4 a pound. The North American equity market in this space has moved dramatically. We now sit amongst peers that have resources between 600 million to 1 billion tonnes, 0.35 to 0.65 copper, sitting at valuation ranges in the North American market of between 500 million to 1.4 billion. And we're a $200 million market cap sitting in that space. We have a very, very ugly capital structure, or at least we had an ugly capital structure until about a week ago. So our shareholders approved a 50-to-1. We now have an 87 million share structure, and we're trading at about $2.20 a share, in line with our North American peers. You can see that a lot of the reshaping of the company is being aligned to where big copper projects reside and are funded. So we have Glencore as our largest shareholder, management sitting at about 8%, represented by our chairman Murray Black, and GS Group Shandong of China sitting at 6%. That is about to be reshaped. That's great. So I also noticed that Liam inconveniently left off 2 of the only major copper discoveries measured by S&P globally since 2014. I'm sure it was an omission that he'll correct in his next slides. But Rio Tinto and HotChilli have that gong. We matched Rio Tinto tonne for tonne, beat them on grade with a quarter of the drilling, released it a month later in October of last year. Their Winu discovery up in the Patterson, but we don't have 90 metres of desert sand over the top of us and 350 kilometres to port. So it's a significant discovery, and it's really reshaped what we've done. And some of these things are things that you build over many, many years, in this case over a decade. This is about true grit from HotChilli's team to double down in this area, take on a private discovery that most people didn't think we could get, let alone pay for, and a lot of people didn't think it was as big as our first asset, and that has changed. So we now have, as Steve went through, some 750 million tonnes of open pittable material, about 0.5% copper equivalent, using a 0.25 copper equivalent cut. Obviously, you can go down to lower cut-off grades and you can talk about billions of tonnes, but we'll talk about the economic component in this presentation. I guess what all of this is really about is over a decade of investment. Our original Productora project, all of the easement corridors secured for water and power, all of the surface rights secured. Last year in December, we got awarded a maritime concession for all of our water requirements from the Chilean government. These things are 7 to 8 years in the making, and that's what we're really bolting on Cortadera to, a blueprint to develop a major copper project that means our timeframes to production are short. So this is the copper space, the top 20 undeveloped projects of the world that majors don't control. You'll notice from left to right, they're all mainly coloured blue. They are the North American projects. The ones in grey are the New York Stock Exchange projects, and the ones in red are the Australian projects. We're not well represented in this space, and we haven't been represented in this space since Equinox was removed by Barrick's takeover of $7.2 billion. Equinox and Craig Williams learnt a very valuable lesson in the last copper cycle. If you want to enjoy valuations when the copper price goes to $4 per pound, you'd best be over in the North American market. The re-rate on that company was dramatic, $400 million to about nearly 2 years later, a $7.2 billion takeover. So we not just sit well within the top 20 projects by scale, we're also about the fourth best grade in those top 20 projects. When you layer across elevation, these things are really important. How doable is the project? Nearly all of those peers next to us are sitting over 4,000 metres, and a lot of them have arsenic. And I like to look at their market capitalisations because in 2 weeks I'll be shoulder to shoulder with companies turning $1 billion, $1.4 billion market caps. This is just some of the key points. Rare to get projects of this scale in Canada, Australia or Chile, rarer at low altitude and even rarer with clean concentrates. They will be very, very valued coming into this supply gap that is growing. I'm not going to talk about ESG. It's a fancy acronym for what the mining industry has been striving forward on forever and a day. This is social license to operate in partnerships, and this is how you're meant to operate in any country that you want to develop a large mine. We'll talk about the discovery quickly. Thank you, Steve, for giving the geology backdrop on some of the things and techniques that Steve's been using with the team to grow this. It has grown really rapidly. We have a 450 million tonne resource put out a year ago with a year and a half of drilling into this deposit. We put another 45,000 metres of drilling in. That'll be shut down in mid-December and will facilitate our next resource upgrade. It has regularly put out some of the best world-class drill results going around. I think we have 9 of the top 30 drill results in the copper space over the last 9 years. I like this slide. I also like the footprint. It's about the same strike length as Alpala over in Cascabel, but it's not one finger turning into a hand, as Steve pointed out. It's 3 fingers pointing into a glove. I think a pretty big glove. It looks big, Liam. Look, we've been really focusing on trying to close out the ore body this year, trying to lift the definition of the resource and really expand out on the high-grade core. These are the 3 porphyries extending through the surface, mostly open pittable, 14 kilometres away from a very large open pit at Productora. Quite a bit of high grade. It's growing quickly. And we'll have that next resource out in or around February. Just looking down on the main porphyry, about 900 metres long, 600 metres wide, and you're looking down at the high-grade core in the centre, a C shape that we closed into a D shape over the last few months. Been putting out quite a number of very good drill results this year, more 800 metre and 600 metre intercepts, but again, focusing on that high grade and really building out a cave option to be added to these large open pits. And here's a side-by-side next to Alpala. Having the same lead consultant means we're following a very, very similar approach and blueprint to the way that we're advancing this project and growing it, and certainly seeing similar controls. I think Alpala and Cortadera are two of the only type 2 porphyries to be discovered in the past decade. So you know, these systems lend themselves well to cave operations if they extend into 1 kilometre ore columns as this has. And we're certainly seeing very, very good grades at the same depth for all the reasons Steve talked about with shallowing and flattening of veins as they saw at Alpala. What we're really excited about and what Glencore is really excited about is what happens when a guy was crazy enough to spend 13 years of his life consolidating a big chunk of the Chilean coastline, but was lucky enough to get the discovery 3 months of listing the ASX back in 2010. We didn't have time to really explore outside of the main discovery on Productora, which you're looking across with all those platforms. That's 330,000 metres of drill holes, over 1,000 drill holes put into the deposit. Very big open pit ready to go with a lot of high grade. But fast forward to 2019, we got the same lucky problem. We started drilling and we haven't stopped on the discovery zone. So over the next 6 months, we get to drill all of our fantastic blue sky and that's really what I suppose has been a big draw card. This is one of the only gaps on the Chilean coastline set every 150 kilometres that we don't have a Tier 1 camp. We're very close to establishing that, and over the next year we'll take this thing over 1 billion tonnes with a bit of luck and a fair bit of willpower. So we'll be drilling very big targets that we've identified sitting right next to Productora with really cutting-edge 3D geochemical modelling being undertaken by Fathom. We put this technique over the top of our ore bodies using surface geochemistry, multi-element low detection work, and you always want to do a proof of concept. Can it find your ore bodies? It found all 3 porphyries at Cortadera. It modelled 3-dimensional probability models that almost mimic our resource shapes. It also found Productora, and it found a very large porphyry target sitting right next to the ore body. So we move into a very exciting phase of drilling over the next 6 months. We'll be drilling this in about 4 weeks' time before Christmas, and then we'll be shifting into drilling across 12 large-scale targets, some of them big porphyry footprints sitting north and south of Cortadera, and certainly starting to now open up outside of the discovery zone with our data sets, mapping teams, geochemistry, and a lot of exploration expertise being applied by the John Beesons and Steve Garwins and Matty Wallaces of the world, and a fantastic growing team that we've got at HotChilli. So where this all goes, as I've said, this has been a complete reshaping of HotChilli, almost a rebirth. New capital structure, growing board, new management team, significant shareholder in Glencore, 3rd largest miner in the world, backing us. Finally, an opportunity to step out into these large land holdings and hit our upside. And so certainly a continuation, a very strong news flow going into next year post our TSXV listing. But obviously, you know, we haven't finished. We've got several resource upgrades on the cards next year, a pre-feasibility that'll be complete on or around the 3rd quarter of next year, and that's shifting us into project financing in late 2024. This will be one of the earlier production plays out of the largest projects in the pipeline in 2026. So thank you very much for allowing me to give you an update on everything HotChilli.